Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, panelists, we are gradually coming to the end of the session, and it is now my duty to try to make sense of all that has been said this afternoon. Extremely important points were raised, both from the floor and from the panelists themselves. And so it's not an easy task to try to capture everything, but I'll give it a shot. Now, I think the most significant thing that happens here is that everybody agrees that regional integration is not a choice. It is, in fact, one can use the word, is an imperative. But there seems to also be a level of optimism that it is possible. Now, but with this possibility and this desirability is somewhat tempered by the fact that we need to recognize that regional integration is not an event. You know, it has happened and then we move on. It is a process that keeps going on. And but for it to happen, it is important for Africa to pay attention to its own history. So the historical dimension comes out very clearly, judging from the empires of the old, you know, whereby trade was at the foundation, but that the areas were regionally integrated, and that one has to understand that that kind of cooperation, economic cooperation, is very important. But that regional integration is not just a political issue or even an economic issue for that matter. It goes beyond politics, it goes beyond economics. It has to involve other dimensions that are so important for its, not just for its startup, but also for its sustainability, whether it's cultural or it is from the point of view of human beings, human interaction, then that is extremely important. So, having seen that, then the idea is that if we want to look at how best to not only take the steps that will enable regional integration to become a reality, but to look at the regional integration as a catalyst towards the transformation agenda of the continent. That we have to then, number one, we have to have the state that has the capacity to take the lead, whether it is nationally or at the institutional, at the continental, sub-regional or continental level, with the appropriate institutions and the appropriate policies. That we have to have a business model that actually would allow certain things to happen when it comes to making sure that you have the transboundary value chains as well as the development corridors that will actually not only help regional integration to move forward, but also become very, very useful and very vital in helping the landlocked countries as a whole. So in a sense, we recognize, we have heard from the panelists today and from the audience, that it is very important for us to think about how African countries can look at their areas of comparative advantage, that even when it is not so obvious, that it is actually possible for that to happen. Some examples were given, you know, ranging from the one that is so attainable in the agricultural area to just think about agriculture from a commercial standpoint, moving first of all from food security to, you know, looking towards export, but not just the traditional export of primary agricultural products, but the ones that to which value has been added. And we should look at this in terms of the regional value chains and be able to add more value to it. And that will help not only to satisfy the development needs, but also create jobs and improve human welfare. Another dimension is essentially to think more about the regional value chains in terms of not necessarily manufacturing total output products. The example that was given is instead of thinking about manufacturing an entire Toyota, you should think about manufacturing the parts of the Toyota, which is actually the segue or the first step towards getting into the global value chains, which is extremely important Africa to move forward. And then think more about the economies of agglomeration and the industrial clusters. From an agricultural standpoint, you know, we learned that it is, you know, it's very important to think about, you know, not just what the market wants, but also developing the capacity to produce that. and the capability to do that, and providing the physical and intellectual institutional framework that will make that possible. More importantly, to make sure you pay attention to energy, which is very vital for that. Okay, having said that, therefore, we saw an example of what can be achieved from the UMA region if certain things were to be put in place. The need to go back to the drawing board and to see precisely how you can short-circuit or bypass the political roadblocks and then look for other ways of attainable cooperation areas, especially from an economic angle, which can become the stepping stone towards having a more integrated Arab Maghreb region. The example that was given there also was that it is very important to recognize that one can borrow lessons from the informal sector, but that one can also make sure that we look at other areas where that can be utilized to make this happen. I guess what was talked about here is an example I thought was very, very interesting, is on the educational front, where the suggestion was made that you should not underestimate the impact of making sure that there is international or inter-country exchange of students, given certain percentages, in order to make sure that you expose them at the earlier age at the idea of an integrated Arab Maghreb region. Now, all these things come up with the fact that, yes, these are things that can be done, but we seem to also not pay serious attention to an important angle, which is the political context. What was described as the embedded political dysfunction, which more or less has hampered the wishes and aspirations of an integrated Africa. In a sense, without paying attention to this political situation, it becomes difficult to actually address some of the impediments such as the ones that deal with the conflict between national interest and sub-regional interests, and also how to make sure that the decisions that are made are actually implemented that will result to a more integrated Africa. Another dimension of this is the issue of competitiveness, which should be paid attention to. But I think overall, the thing that links all these things together is to recognize that no matter what, the state again comes back into the picture. Its role, both at the national and the supranational level, as well as the role that the appropriate policies, be they macroeconomic policies or fiscal policies, but also industrial policies. But I think more importantly, that we need to strengthen the regional economic communities and try to also to rationalize them so that they can perform their roles very well. Now, I hope that I have not missed anything. The issue of skills and innovations were mentioned, the adequacy of infrastructure was mentioned, and the issues of making sure that we deal with the embedded dysfunctional political dysfunction was also mentioned. So I can only say at this point in time, I don't know about you, but this has been thoroughly refreshing, very, very educative, and very informative. And I think I'll go out here much more enriched. And thanks to the audience that has been very, very participatory, and to the panelists here who I think have done a great job. So if you will, assist me in thanking the distinguished panel members here for such a great job, I really appreciate it. On my part, I thank you and wish you a great evening. Goodbye. Phone, please. Sorry, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. I forgot that I was given one more task. May I have your attention, please, for 1 second? Please, I forgot that I was given one more task. And this is to make some announcements, housekeeping issues. Please, I am requested to remind you about session 1.1, which is the Convergence and Monetary Unions. Convergence and Monetary Unions, this is session 1.1. This will be in room La Toscana. In room La Toscana. And this will be the panel that will be chaired by Dr. Victor Murinde, the director of the African Development Bank.